She thought she was just cleaning out an old building. Then she knocked on the wall. And the sound that came back was hollow. Behind that wall was a room her mother had sealed shut 30 years ago. And what was inside rewrote everything Claire thought she. Claire Merritt pulled into the gravel drive with both hands on the wheel and her jaw set like she was bracing for impact, which, honestly, she was. The Subaru shuddered when she killed the engine. 214,000 miles on the odometer, a cracked taillight held together with packing tape, and a noise from the transmission that had been getting worse since somewhere around the New Hampshire border. She sat there for a second with the key still in the ignition, staring through the windshield at the thing her mother had left her. A farmhouse, if you wanted to be generous about it, built sometime in the 1880s, white clapboard gone gray, porch sagging on the left side like a tired mouth, shutters missing, roof patched with tar paper in 2 places. The kind of house that makes a real estate listing use words like character and potential, because nobody wants to write what they actually mean, which is, this place is dying and it knows it. Behind it, set back maybe 40 feet into a tangle of creeper vine and volunteer maple, sat a smaller structure. Stone foundation, timber frame, a padlock on the door so rusted it looked like it had grown there. The ice house. Every old Vermont farmstead had one. This one hadn't stored ice in probably 60 years. Claire pressed the heel of her hand against her eyes until the pressure steadied her. Then she reached across the passenger seat, past the court-ordered eviction notice folded in the glove box. 30 days, no appeal, have a nice life, and grabbed her jacket. Faded olive green canvas, worn almost soft. Underneath it, against her collarbone, the tarnished silver locket sat on its thin chain, cold from the drive. She'd had it since she was 7. Her mother had put it around her neck without a word, and Claire had never opened it. The clasp was corroded shut by the time she thought to try, and after a while it stopped mattering what was inside. It was the only thing she'd kept. Divorced at 36, laid off at 37, evicted at 38. That's a hell of a streak. And the checking account, she'd looked at it on her phone at the last gas station, read $211.14. Do the math with me. $211.14. A car that might not start again, and a property appraised at $14,000, which sounds almost okay until you learn the back taxes were more than that. Her mother, Bess Merritt, had died 3 weeks ago at 71. They hadn't spoken in 6 years. Not a fight, exactly. More like a silence that calcified until neither of them could find the chisel. The will was 2 pages. It left Claire everything, which was this. She drove into Harwick proper, population 340 on a good day, and this was not a good day. 1 diner with a neon sign missing the R, 1 hardware store, a post office open Tuesdays and Thursdays. She needed a pry bar for the padlock on the ice house, and the hardware store was the only option. Dale Hoskins stood behind the counter like he'd been built there, broad-shouldered, silver-white hair cropped close, military straight spine. Tortoiseshell half-moon reading glasses on a beaded chain around his neck. He watched her come in without a word, and when she set the pry bar on the counter, he rang it up. $7.49, and then reached down and put a dented green Stanley thermos beside it. "On the house," he said. "Your mother bought a lot of pry bars." Claire looked at him, looked at the thermos, picked up both, and walked out. She didn't know what to make of that. She wouldn't. Not yet. The padlock gave up on the 3rd try. Rust flaked off in orange sheets, and the hasp groaned, and the door swung inward on hinges that screamed like they'd been waiting years to complain. And the smell hit her first. Cedar and mildew, and something faintly sweet that she couldn't place until she looked up and saw the bundles of dried lavender hung from a rafter, gray-purple and papery, swaying in the draft from the open door. Iron hooks in the ceiling from when this place stored block ice, shelves along both walls, stacked deep with crates and old tools and mason jars full of rusted hardware, nails, screws, hinges, the kind of things you save because throwing them away feels like giving up. A workbench against the far wall, scarred and oil-stained. Her mother's sewing machine sat on it under a canvas tarp, and beside it a box of fabric scraps and a crate of old phone books from the 90s. Nothing valuable. Nothing worth driving 4 hours for. Nothing worth the $7.49 she'd just spent on the pry bar that brought her checking account to $203.65. Minus the gas to get here, call it $30. Minus the $34 she'd need for the property transfer filing at the county clerk's office. That put her at $139.65 and falling. Every dollar had a name now. Every purchase was a subtraction she could feel in her chest. Claire worked through the afternoon, pulled crates off shelves, sorted mason jars, stacked the phone books by the door for recycling, poured Dale Hoskins's coffee into a chipped mug she found on the workbench, and drank it standing up, staring at the iron hooks overhead. It was good coffee. Better than she expected from a thermos handed over by a stranger who spoke in fragments. Late afternoon light came through the single window at an angle that turned the dust into gold. She'd cleared most of the east wall, moved the sewing machine, swept behind the workbench, and then she reached the back wall. She knocked on it out of habit. You check for rot in old buildings. You rap your knuckles on the wood and listen for the dull thud of solid timber or the soft give of something eaten through. The sound came back hollow. She froze. Knocked again. Same spot, middle of the wall, about chest height. Hollow. Not rotten, hollow, like there was space behind it. She crouched down, ran her fingers along the baseboard, and felt the heads of screws where there should have been nails. Phillips' head, countersunk. Someone had built this wall to look permanent, but the planks weren't nailed to studs. They were screwed in from the inside. From the inside. Claire knocked one more time, softer now, pressing her ear to the wood. Behind the planks, something shifted. The faintest clink of metal on metal, or maybe it was just settling. But it isn't. She stepped back and stared at the wall like it just called her name. She doesn't move for a long time, just stands there in the dying light, pry bar loose in her right hand, staring at that wall like it owes her an explanation. The ice house smells like cold stone and old cedar, and the hollow sound is still ringing somewhere behind her teeth. 6 screws. She can see them now that she's looking. Phillips' head, driven tight into the planks, painted over so they blend with the wood. Someone didn't want these found by accident. Someone wanted them found by someone who was looking. Claire fits the claw end of the pry bar under the first screw head and twists. It fights her. The paint cracks in a little star pattern around the shaft, and the screw gives with a sound like a knuckle popping. 1 down, 5 to go. Her hands are steady. They've always been steady when there's something to do. It's the waiting that kills her, the sitting in cars, the sitting in offices, the sitting in rooms where someone else decides what happens to you. But this? This is just hardware. She knows hardware. The second screw comes easier. Third. Fourth. By the 5th, she can feel the false wall shifting against her palm, a 1/4 inch of play where the wood wants to swing free. The 6th screw drops and pings off the concrete floor and rolls into the dark, and the panel comes away in her hands like a page being turned. Cold air pours out. Not stale cold, deep cold, the kind that lives in stone. And the smell. God, the smell. Old paper and dust and something faintly like dried lavender, and underneath all of it, linseed oil, the way her grandmother's sewing tin used to smell when she opened the lid. Claire's throat goes tight before her brain catches up. The room behind the wall is roughly 8 by 10 feet. Poured concrete floor, no windows, no insulation. It was built to last, not to be comfortable. And it is full. Shelves line 3 walls, floor to ceiling, and on those shelves are journals, dozens of them. Composition notebooks with marbled covers, the kind you buy at a drugstore for $1.50. Dates written in black ink on the spines, neat and small. The earliest one says 1971. The latest says 2023, 1 year before Bess died. 52 years of something, lined up like a spine made of paper. In the corner, an olive drab filing cabinet, 3 drawers, the kind you'd find in a school office or a VA clinic. Dented on one side. A padlock through the top drawer's handle, but the lock is open, just hanging there. And against the far wall, a small wooden desk with a gooseneck lamp, the cord snaking down to a power strip on the floor. Claire reaches for the chain and pulls it. The bulb flickers once, then holds. Warm yellow light fills the room like a held breath finally let go. She turns around, and Scout is there. The gray-brown shepherd is sitting at the ice house door, dark amber eyes watching her with a patience that doesn't belong to a stray. He doesn't approach, doesn't whine. He just waits, ribs faintly visible under his dull coat, gray muzzle pointed toward the hidden room like he already knows what's in it. Claire leaves the door open. A full minute passes. Then he comes in, slow and deliberate, sniffs the threshold of the hidden room, the concrete lip where the false wall used to sit, and lies down across the doorway, not blocking her, guarding her, like he's been waiting for someone to finally open that wall, and now his job is to make sure nobody closes it again. Claire pulls the first journal off the shelf, 1971. She opens it, and her mother's handwriting hits her like a slap. She'd know it anywhere. The tall, looping L's, the way the G's curl back on themselves, the slight leftward slant that made every teacher Bess ever had try to correct her grip. It's a log, not a diary, a log. Names, dates, dollar amounts, written in neat columns like a bookkeeper's ledger. February 12th, Paulson family, heating oil, $42. March 3rd, Donna Whitfield, groceries, $18.50. April, Janine Coulter, first last month rent deposit, $300. Page after page, entry after entry. Claire doesn't understand what she's reading yet. She flips forward. May, June. The names change, but the pattern doesn't. Someone needed something. Someone gave it to them. Bess wrote it down. Claire sets the journal back on the shelf and stares at the rows of notebooks stretching into the dark end of the room, and the math starts forming in the back of her skull. 52 years of this, dozens of entries per year, but she doesn't let herself finish the calculation. Not yet. The filing cabinet pulls her instead. She slides the padlock free and opens the top drawer, and it's full of manila envelopes, each one labeled in that same handwriting. She flips through the tabs, names she doesn't recognize. Anderson, Beecham, Coulter, Dawes. Her fingers stop. Claire. One envelope, her name in her mother's hand. She pulls it out, and the weight of it surprises her. Not heavy, but not empty. She opens the clasp, and 30 cards slide into her lap. Birthday cards, sealed, stamped, addressed. And here's where the air leaves the room. Addressed to places Claire has lived. The Hendersons' foster home on Maple, the group home on Route 9, the apartment on Birch she rented at 22 with money she earned cleaning motel rooms. Every address, every single one, but never mailed. Every stamp uncanceled, every seal unbroken. She opens the first one, a drugstore card with a cartoon bear holding balloons. Inside, a $20 bill and 5 words in her mother's handwriting. Happy birthday, Claire Bear. I'm sorry I couldn't give this to you. Claire was told her mother abandoned her, that Bess never tried, never called, never wrote, never cared. She heard it from caseworkers, from foster parents, from a stepfather who said it like he was doing her a favor by telling the truth. And she believed them, because what else do you do when every adult in your life agrees on the same story? 30 cards, $600, more money than she has in the world right now, but it's the cards that break her. One for every year from 8 to 38, the last one dated 3 months before Bess died. Her hands are shaking. She reads them in order, youngest to oldest, and each one says the same thing in slightly different words. I see you. I know where you are. I couldn't get to you, but I never stopped. Claire presses the heel of her hand against her eyes until the pressure steadies her. Scout noses the nearest card and lies down beside her. Morning. Claire hasn't slept. She's sitting at the small wooden desk in the hidden room, journals spread in front of her, Scout lying across the doorway, the gooseneck lamp casting a warm circle of light over 50 years of her mother's secret life. And here's the thing about reading someone's journals when they're gone. You don't get to ask questions. You just sit there and let the answers come in their own order, in their own handwriting, and hope you can hold them. Claire starts at the beginning. 1971. Bess Merritt was 23 years old and had just moved into the ice house after her own mother died. The first entry is plain, practical. Brought Mrs. Calloway heating oil, 15 gallons, $4.20. That's it. No explanation, no philosophy. Just a woman in her 20s hauling heating oil to a neighbor who couldn't afford it and writing down what it cost. Then 1972, then 73. Then the 70s blur into the 80s, and the entries multiply. Grocery runs for shut-ins, rent deposits slipped under doors and envelopes with no return address, school supplies left on porches in August, notebooks, pencils, rulers, glue sticks, all of it itemized in Bess's small, tight handwriting. Medical bills paid anonymously through the Harwick post office, receipts stapled to the journal pages, a $340 dental bill for someone named Wanda Pruitt, a $1,100 emergency room visit for a man called George Hess, a $3,200 surgery fund for a family listed only as the Denton Boy, appendix. Every dollar accounted for, every single one. Claire turns the pages and the decades keep coming. The 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s. Different notebooks, same handwriting, same meticulous columns of numbers. Names she doesn't recognize, names she does. People from town, people Dale mentioned, people whose last names are on mailboxes she passed driving in. 237 names across 52 years, total dispersed. And Bess kept a running tally on the inside-back cover of every journal, carried forward to the next. $341,612. Let that land for a second. $341,000. From a woman who worked as a seamstress and cleaned houses. A woman who never owned a car newer than 15 years old. A woman who, as far as anyone in Harwick knew, had nothing. So where did the money come from? Claire finds the answer in the filing cabinet's second drawer. Savings bonds. United States Treasury, Series EE. Bess bought them one at a time. $25, $50, $100 when she could manage it. For decades. Some she cashed early to fund the aid network. Those are marked in the journals with a small asterisk and a date. Some she kept. The ones she kept are in the bottom drawer, wrapped in a white cloth napkin with a blue embroidered edge, the kind you'd find at a church rummage sale for a quarter. 16 bonds. Claire counts them twice because her hands are shaking and she loses track the first time. Face value, $4,700. But Series EE bonds double at maturity. Some of these are 30 years old. The matured value, calculated on the Treasury's own schedule, $52,341. Claire sits back in the wooden chair and presses the tarnished silver locket against her collarbone through her heather gray thermal. $52,000 wrapped in a napkin in a filing cabinet in a hidden room in an ice house that the county wants to sell for back taxes. Her mother saved it a quarter bond at a time over half a century, and it's been sitting here in the dark, waiting. She steps outside into cold morning air that bites her cheeks and turns the freckles across her nose pink. The sky is the color of old pewter. Scout follows her out and sits on the frozen ground beside the door like a sentry. Dale Hoskins's truck is coming up the road. She can hear it before she sees it, that particular rattle of a diesel engine with 200,000 miles of opinion about cold starts. He parks at the bottom of the drive, gets out slow, military straight spine, silver-white hair catching the flat light. Tortoiseshell half-moon glasses on their beaded chains swinging against the buffalo plaid flannel. He sets a brown paper bag on the tailgate, 2 egg sandwiches wrapped in foil, still warm enough that the foil is slightly damp with steam. He doesn't ask what she found. He looks at the ice house, at the wall planks she'd pried off leaning against the exterior, at the gooseneck light still burning inside the hidden room. His pale blue eyes move across all of it the way a man reads a landscape he already understands. She told me she'd leave you standing. Guess she did. 7 words. Then he gets back in the truck and drives away. Didn't wait for a thank you. Didn't linger to see if she'd cry. Just delivered the food and the truth and left her alone with both. Claire eats one of the sandwiches standing up, gives Scout half the other. Then she goes inside and calls the county clerk. Property taxes owed on the Merritt parcel, $6,200, due in 60 days or the property goes to tax sale. Claire has $168.65 in her checking account after gas and the crackers she bought 2 days ago. Even with the bonds, which would take weeks to process through the Treasury, maybe longer, she's short. And 60 days isn't weeks. 60 days is a clock with teeth. The math is a vice tightening. She cannot afford to keep the property. She cannot afford to walk away from what's inside it. She's standing on the porch doing that math for the 3rd time, Scout pressed against her boot, when gravel crunches under tires that don't rattle. A black Audi. Clean. Recent model. The kind of car that doesn't belong on a road like this and knows it. Martin Kessler steps out. Charcoal wool overcoat, slate blue dress shirt, no tie, top button undone. Slim black leather portfolio tucked under his left arm. Those slim, rectangular, black-framed glasses catching the gray light. He looks at the ice house the way you'd look at a lot number in a catalog, already calculating square footage, setback requirements, demolition costs. His offer, when it comes, will be $47,000 cash, closing in 10 days, back taxes included. To Claire, who has $168.65 and a locket she won't take off, and a dog she didn't ask for, and 16 savings bonds wrapped in a napkin, this is salvation in a charcoal overcoat. Martin Kessler's black Audi pulls up the gravel drive. He steps out, portfolio under his arm, and looks at the ice house like he's measuring it. Claire watches from the doorway. Scout stands up. Nobody speaks. But Claire already knows what he wants, because his last name is on one of the letters her mother wrote but never sent. Martin Kessler extends his hand. Claire doesn't take it. He smiles like he expected that and lowers it without awkwardness. "I'm not here to pressure you," he says. "I'm here because this property is going to tax sale in 60 days whether I show up or not. I'd rather you get paid than the county." That line. Listen to it. Taste it. He'd rather she get paid. Like he's doing her a favor by showing up in polished black Oxfords on a gravel drive in the middle of nowhere, Vermont, to buy a dead woman's house for a resort group. Like the Audi and the charcoal wool overcoat and the slim black leather portfolio tucked under his left arm are all just accessories to his generosity. Martin Kessler is not a bad man. That's what makes him dangerous. Bad men you can see coming. Martin Kessler arrives with warm brown eyes behind slim rectangular black-framed glasses and a voice like a financial advisor who genuinely wants you to retire comfortably, and an offer that makes so much sense you'd feel stupid saying no. He walks the property with Claire. She lets him, hands in the pockets of her olive green canvas jacket, the tarnished silver locket tucked inside her heather gray thermal where he can't see it. She doesn't guide him. She doesn't narrate. She just walks beside him while he narrates for both of them. He admires the ice house, stands in the doorway and looks up at the timber frame and says, "This is extraordinary craftsmanship. You don't see mortise and tenon joints like this anymore." He runs his hand along a beam. The small cluster of 3 freckles on his left cheekbone catches the light when he turns. The resort group would preserve the structure, convert it to a heritage cottage, maintain the historical character. He pauses. Exposed beams, original stonework. Guests would pay a premium for authenticity like this. Heritage cottage, authenticity. $400 a night for someone from Boston to sleep where Bess Merritt kept her journals and her secrets and her 50 years of invisible generosity. That's what preservation means in Martin Kessler's vocabulary. It means a price tag on a dead woman's life, dressed up in reclaimed wood and linen bedsheets. Claire listens. She doesn't argue. Scout stands at her heel, gray-brown coat dull in the afternoon light, dark amber eyes tracking Martin's movements with the patience of a dog who has outlasted better men than this. "I need to think about it," Claire says. 5 words. No explanation, no counter-offer, just a fact as plain as the granite foundation under their boots. Martin nods. Of course, take a week. He pulls a card from his portfolio, cream stock, embossed, hands it to her with both hands like it's a gift. But the tax clock doesn't pause, Claire. 60 days. After that, the county takes it regardless, and you walk away with nothing. He says her name like they're friends, like he's known her longer than 11 minutes. That's the trick. That's always the trick with men like Martin Kessler. They skip past the part where they earn your trust and go straight to using your first name like they've already earned it. He drives away. The Audi crunches gravel. Claire stands in the doorway holding his card between two fingers like it might bite her. She goes back inside, down the stairs, into the hidden room behind the welded door Dale Hoskins helped her cut through. The chemical smell of old paper and dried lavender hits her before she reaches the bottom step. She's not looking for comfort. She's looking for a reason to say no. She doesn't have one yet. All she has is a feeling in her chest like a fist closing, and feelings don't pay property taxes. She reads more journals. Bess's handwriting, small, precise, slanting left, fills page after page. Dates, names, dollar amounts, every entry a transaction nobody asked for and nobody knew about. Claire turns pages until her fingers are gray with dust and her eyes ache. Then she finds it. A 1987 entry. 3 lines. Kessler, Helen Kessler, surgery, Rutland Regional, $3,200, paid through P.O. Box 114, do not contact. Claire stares at the name. Kessler. Her brain files it somewhere behind the exhaustion and the cold and the math that won't stop running in her head. She doesn't connect it. Not yet. She closes the journal. She sits on the concrete floor with her back against the filing cabinet and Scout lying across her boots, his ribs faintly visible under coarse gray-brown fur, his muzzle gray, his breathing slow and even. And the room goes quiet in the way only underground rooms can. No wind, no birds, no road noise. Just her own pulse and the dog's breathing and the faint tick of the house settling above her. 2 a.m. She's still there. Martin's card is in her jacket pocket. Her phone is in her hand. The screen glows blue-white against the dark. She pulls up her banking app. $168.65. Gas to leave this place and drive somewhere, anywhere with a lease office open, $40. Food for 3 days, $15. Filing fee for bond redemption, she doesn't even know the process, doesn't know who to call, doesn't know if the bonds are still valid after decades in a filing cabinet underground. But she knows this number, $47,000. That's what those savings bonds are worth if they've matured. $47,000 would pay off every debt she carries. First and last month on an apartment. $30,000 left over to start a life that doesn't taste like concrete dust and cold coffee. She picks up the phone. She pulls up the number from Martin's cream stock card. Her thumb hovers over the call button. If you've ever sat alone at 2 a.m. with a number in your hand that would fix everything, you know what this feels like. The gravity of it. The relief already forming in your chest before you've even pressed the button. Then her heel shifts against the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet. It slides open an inch. She looks down. Behind the bonds. Behind a stack of old receipts. A manila folder, the tab labeled in Bess's handwriting. Kessler. Claire pulls it out. Inside, a receipt from 1987. Rutland Regional Hospital. $3,200. Paid anonymously, through P.O. Box 114. And a note in Bess's hand, folded once. Helen came through surgery fine. Martin is 6 years old. He will never know. Claire reads it twice. The phone screen goes dark in her other hand. She puts it down on the concrete beside her knee. The doubt doesn't vanish. It just stops being the loudest thing in the room. Because the man in the charcoal overcoat with the warm smile and the reasonable offer and the slim black leather portfolio, the man who showed up to buy this house and gut its meaning and wrap it in linen for $400 a night, that man is alive because of Bess Merritt. His mother survived because a woman he never met paid $3,200 through a post office box and wrote, "Do not contact." Claire does the math differently now. 237 names across 5 decades. Every dollar tracked, every family noted. This isn't a diary. It's an institution. One woman's entire life turned into a machine for keeping other people standing. And if Claire sells to the resort group, the room becomes a novelty. Heritage Cottage, formerly a secret charity hub, how charming. Would you like sparkling or still with your breakfast? If she doesn't sell, she has 60 days before tax sale. She needs a third option. She doesn't have one yet. Claire closes the folder and sets it on the desk. She doesn't know what to do with it yet, but she knows the shape of this story just changed. Dawn. Claire is standing in the ice house doorway, holding the Kessler folder and watching fog lift off the field behind her mother's house. Scout is sitting beside her, ears forward, watching the tree line like he's expecting someone. The fog moves slow out here, like it knows there's nowhere to go. Claire's gray-green eyes track it as it pulls apart over the dead grass, and the tarnished silver locket catches the first weak light at her collar. She hasn't slept. The folder in her hand, the one with the $3,200 receipt, the one that proves Bess Merritt saved Martin Kessler's mother's life without ever asking for a word of thanks, sits against her thigh like a loaded weapon she doesn't want to fire. But that's not the folder she's thinking about right now. She's thinking about the custody file, the one she doesn't have yet. By 8:15, she's in the car. Scout rides shotgun with his gray muzzle on the dash, amber eyes half closed. The county records office is 41 minutes east in Addison, past the feed store and the closed-up Agway, and the post office that's only open Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Claire parks in a lot with 6 spaces and 3 of them empty. She leaves the window cracked 2 inches for Scout and walks inside. The clerk is a woman in her 60s with bifocals on a chain and a cardigan the color of oatmeal. Claire gives her name, gives her date of birth, says the words out loud for the first time in her life. "I'd like the custody filing records for Claire Merritt." The petitioner would have been Bess Merritt, somewhere between 1993 and 1996. The clerk doesn't blink. She types something, disappears into a back room. 20 minutes. That's all it takes to find the thing that rewrites a life. 20 minutes and a filing system that still uses colored tabs. 3 filings. 3 separate custody petitions. 1993, 1995, 1996. Bess Merritt, listed as maternal grandmother, petitioned the family court of Addison County 3 times to gain custody of her granddaughter, and 3 times Tom Merritt, Claire's father, the man who told a 5-year-old girl that her mother's mother didn't want her, that nobody on that side ever came looking, contested the filing, hired a lawyer, showed up in a pressed shirt, told the court Bess was financially unstable, told the court the child was thriving, told the court there was no basis for removal. The court sided with the father, every time. Claire reads the denial letters standing at the counter. Her throat closes. The words swim. Petition denied. Insufficient grounds. The respondent demonstrates adequate care, and her hands grip the edge of the laminate until her knuckles go white. The clerk asks if she needs a copy. Claire nods, folds the papers into thirds when they come off the printer, slides them into her olive-green canvas jacket without a word. She drives back in silence. Scout watches her from the passenger seat, patient, still. "Now listen, I need you to understand what just happened. Claire spent 33 years believing she was unwanted, that the woman who should have fought for her simply didn't. Her father said it plain. She never tried to see you. She didn't care enough to show up. And Claire, being Claire, never argued. She absorbed it, carried it, let it harden into the kind of quiet that looks like strength, but is really just scar tissue. It was a lie, every word of it. Bess showed up. Bess filed paperwork. Bess sat in a courtroom 3 times and begged a judge to let her raise her own granddaughter. And a man in a pressed shirt looked that judge in the eye and said this woman is unstable. And the system believed him, because the system almost always believes the man in the pressed shirt. Back in the ice house, the gooseneck lamp throws its warm circle across the desk. The filing cabinet is still open. The bonds are still in their manila sleeve. The names, all 237 of them, are still pinned to the wall in Bess's careful handwriting. And on the desk, one journal Claire hasn't opened yet. 2023. The last one. The cover is different from the others, softer. The spine is barely cracked, like it wasn't written in often, like every entry cost something. Claire sits down in the wooden desk chair, and her hands are already shaking when she opens it. The first few pages are short entries. Groceries delivered to a family on Route 7. A heating bill paid for a woman named Ruth. The handwriting is looser now, the letters wider, the lines slanting downhill. Bess was tired. You can see it in the ink. And then the last entry. Have you ever held something in your hands that proved someone loved you before you even knew you needed it? The final entry is addressed to Claire, not to whoever finds this. Not to the town, not to a lawyer, not to posterity. To Claire, by name, in a hand that shakes but does not stop. Claire, if you're reading this, you found the room. Everything I did because I couldn't keep you. The court said no. Your father said no. The state said no. So I kept everyone else's children warm and fed and safe because I couldn't keep mine. The bonds are yours. The names are yours. The room is yours. You were always the reason. I'm sorry it took a locked wall to say it. Claire's knees give. Not dramatically, not like a movie. They just stop holding. She sits down hard in the desk chair, and the springs groan, and she presses her mother's last journal against her chest until her forehead touches it. Her shoulders curve inward. Her breath comes in short pulls that don't quite reach the bottom. Scout crosses the room without a sound and puts his chin on her knee, his dark amber eyes steady, and he doesn't move. The gooseneck lamp hums. Outside, gravel pops under tires. A truck. Dale Hoskins's blue Ford, bed loaded with 6 fresh 2x8s and a box of deck screws. He doesn't knock, doesn't call out. He unloads the lumber onto the tailgate with the unhurried precision of a man who's done this 10,000 times, his silver-white hair catching the morning light, tortoise-shell half-moon glasses swinging on their beaded chain. Claire meets him at the door. Her eyes are red. The journal is still in her hands. Dale looks at her. Looks at the journal. His pale blue eyes don't ask a single question. Bess died owing nothing to anyone and being owed by everyone. That was the richest a woman could be. He sets a socket wrench on the workbench. His hands are still. His spine is straight. You need the back wall rebuilt, or are you keeping it open? Keeping it open, Claire says. Dale nods, pulls a tape measure from his vest pocket, starts measuring. Her phone buzzes 20 minutes later. She knows the number. Martin Kessler. His voice comes through warm, professional, patient, the voice of a man who genuinely believes he is being generous. I know it's only been 2 days, but my clients are eager. I can push the offer to $52,000 if that helps. $52,000 to a woman with $211 in her checking account. That's the kind of number that makes rational people say yes. That's the kind of number that makes the audience at home think maybe she should take it. The ice house is not for sale. 8 words, no anger, no tremor, just granite. Martin pauses. You can hear him recalibrating. Claire, with respect, you can't afford to keep it. Son of a bitch said it like he was helping, like he was doing her a favor, like a woman holding her dead grandmother's last words against her chest just needs someone to explain the math to her. Those are my terms. She hangs up, sets the phone face down on the workbench. Dale doesn't look up from his tape measure. Scout doesn't lift his chin from her knee. The gooseneck lamp hums. Martin Kessler doesn't give up that easily. 2 days later, his Audi is back in the driveway, and this time he's brought a manila envelope of his own, a formal purchase agreement, notarized, with a check for $52,000 stapled to the front page. He stands at the ice house door in that charcoal overcoat, slim black leather portfolio tucked under his left arm, those rectangular glasses catching the gray Vermont light, and he says, I genuinely believe I'm helping you. Let me help you. And here's the thing that makes Martin Kessler dangerous. He's not wrong. He lays it out like a man who's done his homework, because he has. The back taxes on the property are 14 months delinquent. The town of Harwick has already filed a lien, $4,211. 09, accruing interest at 1.5% per month. The roof on the east side of the ice house is sagging under rot that'll cost $8,000 to $12,000 to replace properly. The well pump is original to the 60s. The septic hasn't been inspected since 2014. Insurance alone on a structure this old with no updated electrical runs north of $300 a month. He ticks through the numbers the way a surgeon walks through a diagnosis. Calm, precise, almost gentle, and every single number is accurate. Claire stands in the doorway with her arms crossed over her olive green canvas jacket, the tarnished silver locket just visible at the collar of her Henley. She listens. She doesn't interrupt. She doesn't argue. Her gray-green eyes stay level on his face, and she lets him finish every sentence because that's who Claire Merritt is. She gives you the rope and watches what you do with it. Martin sets the manila envelope on the workbench. He taps the check with one finger. $52,000. That's not a lowball. That's above assessed value. You walk away clean. No liens, no back taxes. Enough to start over somewhere warm. He pauses. That cluster of 3 freckles on his left cheekbone shifts as he offers a careful, warm smile. I'm not the bad guy here, Claire. 5 words back. That's all she gives him. Come inside. There's something you should see. She leads him through the main room, past the workbench, past the coal stove Dale got running, past the spot where Scout is lying on the braided rug with his gray muzzle between his paws. She pulls the tarp aside. She opens the hidden door. Martin Kessler steps into Bess Merritt's sealed room, and the portfolio almost slips from under his arm. She doesn't narrate it for him. She lets the room do the talking. The filing cabinet with its 237 names, the journals stacked chronologically on the desk, the logbook with its columns, date, name, amount, purpose, running across 50 years in handwriting that starts strong and ends shaking. $340,000 dispersed by a woman who cleaned houses and hemmed skirts and never once put her name on a check where anyone could trace it back. Martin reads. He picks up a journal. He sets down his portfolio on the desk, that slim black leather rectangle he carries like a shield, and he actually reads. His brown eyes move behind those rectangular frames, and his mouth changes shape 3 times before he speaks. This is extraordinary, he says, and he means it. You can hear it in his voice, the way the smoothness cracks just enough to let something real bleed through. But then the smoothness seals back up. He sets the journal down. He straightens his glasses. He says, "It doesn't change the math, Claire." Damn near admirable, honestly. The man can stand in a room full of proof that one woman held an entire town together with her bare hands and still see a spreadsheet. That's a talent. Not a good one, but a talent. Claire doesn't flinch. She walks to the filing cabinet. She pulls open the second drawer. She finds the folder she found 2 nights ago, the one labeled Kessler in Bess's careful block letters, and she opens it on the desk. Inside is a receipt from Rutland Regional Medical Center, dated March 14, 1987. Patient, Helen Kessler. Procedure, emergency cholecystectomy with complications. Total billed, $3,200. Paid in full. Payer, anonymous, routed through a trust Bess set up at the Harwick Savings and Loan. Clipped to the receipt is a note in Bess's hand. Helen is home. The boy is 6. She'll be okay. Claire slides it across the desk. She says, $3,200. Rutland Regional, 1987. Helen Kessler. Martin Kessler goes still. Not dramatic still, not movie still. The kind of still where every system in a man's body hits pause at once because the brain needs all available power. His hand goes to his glasses. He takes them off. He puts them back on. He picks up the receipt and reads it, and his lips move without sound, And if you've ever watched someone's entire understanding of their own life restructure in real time, that's what this looks like. His mother almost died when he was 6. He knew that. His father couldn't afford the surgery. He knew that too. What he never knew, what no one ever told him, was that a seamstress in Harwick, Vermont, a woman who cleaned other people's houses and kept a hidden room behind a wall, paid the bill that kept his mother alive. His legs make the decision before his brain catches up. He sits down on the ice house steps because standing is no longer something his body is willing to do. The portfolio stays on the desk. The manila envelope with its $52,000 check stays on the workbench. None of it matters now. He doesn't speak for a long time. When he does, he says, "I was 6. She almost died. My father never told me who paid." He folds the receipt carefully, not crumpling, not rushing, the way you fold something you're going to carry for the rest of your life, and puts it in his breast pocket. He stands up. He looks at Claire. The warmth in his brown eyes isn't performance anymore. It's just a man seeing clearly for the first time in 37 years. "I'll make some calls about the taxes. Don't sign anything." He walks to his car. He doesn't look back. Scout watches from the doorway, dark amber eyes tracking the Audi until it rounds the curve and disappears. Dale is on the other side of the ice house, measuring a window frame with a pencil behind his ear and his dented green Stanley thermos sitting on the sill. He doesn't ask what happened. He says, "You need a new sill on the east side. I've got cedar in the shop." Claire nods. The locket shifts against her collarbone. Scout watches the road a moment longer, then turns and lies back down on the threshold. The fight is over, not because Martin Kessler lost, but because he was seen. Over the next week, something starts happening in Harwick that Claire doesn't orchestrate, doesn't request, and barely understands until it's already underway. It starts with firewood. A cord of it, split clean, stacked tight against the ice house's north wall sometime before dawn on a Thursday. No truck in the drive, no note, just birch and oak and maple, seasoned dry, arranged by someone who knew what they were doing. Claire finds it when she steps outside with Scout at her heels, and she stands there in her olive canvas jacket with her hands in her pockets and the tarnished locket shifting against her collarbone under the thermal Henley, and she doesn't touch it for a full minute. She just looks. Dale tells her later, Frank Paulson, 81 years old. His family was the first entry in the 1971 journal. Bess sheltered his wife for 6 weeks during a custody fight that could have killed her. Frank hasn't spoken about it in 40 years. He doesn't start now. He just leaves wood. The next day, a woman pulls into the gravel drive in a rusted Subaru wagon. Donna Whitfield, 70s, white hair pinned back, hands that shake slightly when she lifts the casserole dish from the passenger seat. She sets it on the ice house steps, tucks a folded note under the foil, and is back in her car before Claire can reach the door. The note is written on lined paper torn from a spiral notebook. It says, "Your mother fed me when I had nothing. Tell me what you need." Claire reads it at the desk. The gooseneck lamp hums. She folds the note and sets it beside the journals. Day 3. A flatbed truck comes up the road loaded with roofing shingles. The driver is Ray Coulter, mid-50s, hands like catcher's mitts, a voice like gravel in a drum. He doesn't get out of the cab right away. He sits there with the engine ticking and looks at the ice house like he's trying to match it to something he remembers. When he finally steps down, he says it plain. "Bess put up first and last month's rent for my mother in 1971. Janine Coulter. Page 4 of that book. I owe her more than a roof, but a roof's what I've got." One sentence. Then he starts unloading shingles. Each person carries a single line connecting them to the ledger. Each line lands like testimony given under oath. And the accumulation, listen to me, the accumulation is the thing. Not one person remembering, not 2, a dozen, then more. Names from the composition notebooks walking back through the ice house door 50 years later, carrying what they can. Claire starts a new log, same format as her mother's. Name, date, contribution. She writes in the same kind of composition notebook. She uses the same desk. The gooseneck lamp hums the same hum. Her handwriting is smaller than Bess's, tighter, but the columns line up. Martin Kessler's contribution arrives without a sound. A letter from the county assessor's office, plain white envelope, official seal. Claire opens it at the desk on a Tuesday morning. The back taxes on the Merritt property, $6,200, the number that had been sitting on her chest like a stone since the second day, paid in full by an anonymous donor through a law firm in Burlington. No note, no card, no slim black leather portfolio, no charcoal overcoat, no warm brown eyes making a reasonable case, just the debt, erased. Claire reads the letter twice. She folds it along its creases. She opens the filing cabinet, pulls out a fresh manila folder, and writes one word on the tab in block letters. Kessler. She files it behind the last of her mother's folders. She closes the drawer. That's all. Son of a bitch actually did it. Didn't ask for credit. Didn't ask for a meeting. Didn't send a business card with the payment. He just made the calls he said he'd make, and then he shut up. Turns out the man who couldn't imagine value without a price tag found one thing he couldn't put a number on. Funny how that works when someone shows you a receipt with your dead mother's name on it. Dale rebuilds the east wall over the course of 4 days, reframes the window, installs a wood stove he hauled from his own barn on a trailer. His tortoiseshell reading glasses sit on the beaded chain around his neck, catching light when he bends to check a level. His dented green Stanley thermos stands on the floor beside whatever wall he's working on. He doesn't accept payment. Claire tries once. Why? She asks. Dale pushes his glasses up onto his forehead. He doesn't look at her. Your mother kept my wife warm the winter she was sick, brought oil every Tuesday for 3 months, wouldn't take a dime, said heat wasn't something you charged for. He puts the glasses back on. He picks up a framing square. He goes back to work. If you've made it this far, stay with me, because this last part is the one I've been waiting to tell you. 6 months later, the ice house is restored. New siding, insulated walls, the hidden room now an open archive with the journals displayed on shelves behind glass Dale built himself. A hand-painted sign above the door reads, Bess Merritt Community Aid, established 1971. Claire redeemed the bonds, all of them, $52,341. She put every cent into the fund, did not keep a dollar for herself, not one. She works part-time at the Harwick Diner and lives in the farmhouse. Her dark auburn hair is still pulled back in that low ponytail, flyaways at the temples, the freckles across her nose a little darker from months of outdoor work. The Locket sits inside her Henley. Scout sleeps on the ice house threshold, his gray muzzle on his paws, his dark amber eyes tracking whoever comes through the drive. The logbook on the desk has 43 new entries in Claire's handwriting. A car pulls into the gravel drive one Tuesday afternoon. Old sedan, cracked taillight. A woman steps out, mid-20s, white, dark circles cut deep under her eyes like bruises. No coat. A duffel bag in the passenger seat. She stands at the ice house door with her arms crossed over her chest, and she doesn't knock. Claire opens it. She doesn't ask for a name. She doesn't ask for a story. She doesn't ask for paperwork or proof or a reason that fits on a form. You eat yet? Claire asks. The woman shakes her head. Claire holds the door open wider. Scout moves out of the doorway. The legacy was never the building. It was never the bonds or the journals or the glass display cases. It was the act of keeping a promise no one asked you to keep, for someone who may never know you kept it. Home is not where you're born. It's where someone decided you were worth the light. The light is still on. The door is open.